Damage to a company's reputation and a whole host of legal and economic risks. These are the main threats outlined by the UK government to any firms thinking of doing any business with their partners in Israeli settlements in the West Bank. RT's Tessa Asile explains now what's behind the reaction there.
An explicit expression of its position over Israeli settlements and occupied territories, which are considered illegal under international law. The UK government's trade and investment arm had issued a warning to British businesses over the risks of involvement in economic and financial activities in the settlements. And one of those risks could be a potential damage to the company's reputation. Now, I spoke with the UK's trade and investment arm, and they told me that these are voluntary guidelines, but they did also confirm that the UK government does not recognize the occupied territories, including the settlements, as part of Israel, and insisted that business and respect for human rights should go hand in hand. Now, in 2009, the British government had issued another voluntary guideline to retailers and supermarkets to allow them to label the settlement produce so that consumers can make an informed choice on their purchases. Now, this isn't the first time that such a warning has been issued here in Europe. Earlier this year in July, the EU had also said that it would stop granting funds to bodies that include academic or research institutions, and also with anyone with links to Israeli settlements, and also said that any future contracts between the EU and Israel must explicitly exclude the settlements. Now, reaction to that warning had drawn a lot of criticism from Israel, an official calling it an earthquake, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu angry over what he called external diktats. Now, as far as reaction to this UK warning is concerned, it has been more subdued. The Israeli embassy here in London had told the Guardian newspaper that it was troubled and concerned. However, it did welcome the confirmation in the guideline that the British government is also opposed to any outright boycott.
And for more on this, let's now talk to Rachel Sharby, author and journalist covering the Middle East. Ms. Rachel Sharby, welcome to RT. It's very good to talk to you right now. So we've just heard our report from our correspondent. From your point of view, what actually triggered this warning we're talking about?
I mean, this warning will obviously be welcomed by Palestinians and by campaigners. For some years now, unofficially, we've been hearing that European politicians, including British politicians, are getting increasingly frustrated that Israel has continued to flout international law on illegal Jewish settlements in the occupied territories. The official British position is that it sees that as a breach of international law, that it sees Jewish settlements as the biggest block to peace. The settlements and the infrastructure and the resources needed to maintain them as the biggest obstacle to the peace process with the Palestinians. And now finally we're seeing Britain actually come out into the open and have a policy that reiterates what its official position on those settlements is.
How would you expect Israel to react to these new UK's guidelines, so to speak?
Well, of course, Israel isn't going to be happy about it, and we've heard already Israeli officials express their disappointment with this new measure. And, you know, the disappointment, of course, is to do with the fact that for a very long time now, Israel has been able to continue with this policy of settlement expansion in the occupied West Bank, despite this being against international law, despite being urged to restrain and to stop doing so by the international community. And it has assumed for a long time that it would just be talk, that it would carry on doing what it wants and it will get rap knuckles and that's about it. But now we're starting to see actual change and a change in policy, and we saw that with the European directive over the summer that has issued guidelines on where its funding can be used, saying that those funds cannot be used in Israeli practices in the occupied West Bank. Now we're seeing it with the UK directive on trade. When the EU issued its directive in July, an Israeli peace organization likened it to pouring a bucket of cold water over a drunk. It has that sort of shock factor and shock effect on the Israeli government.
Rachel Sharby, author and journalist covering the Middle East. Ms. Sharby, thank you very much indeed for sharing your views with us. We appreciate it.